Darkness is your ally. You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blinding.
So, Bane. Pretty much made as an attempt, because back then Joker wasn't really considered his biggest threat. And they're also just more interested in telling new villain stories. They decided, because Superman died last year, let's get Batman on that train. So they decided, what if we create a villain that didn't really kill Batman, but would mark the way for someone else to take over Batman so that we could see the actual problems with someone else not being Bruce Wayne as Batman. Or Dick Grayson, or Terry McGinnis, or anyone but those. And so they had to come up with a villain that would be badass enough to actually defeat Batman. So they came up with Bane. Now, here's the thing. Why didn't I pick Nightfall for this, for to go over while I was recording Batman Arkham Origins, just as an excuse to play it? Well, Nightfall is more of an Azrael story than it is a Bane story. Because Bane only really shows up at the end of part 1 and then gets his ass kicked by Azrael. Well, kicks Azrael's ass, but then gets his ass kicked by Azrael. This is more of a Bane story than that one is. Mainly because it's his origin. So if you know, like, the line from The Dark Knight Rises, I was born in the dark, all that jazz. More or less, it's that origin, except it's in, like, a Costa Rica government instead of the Middle East. So pretty much, Bane's father was a rebellious leader in Santa Prisca, and his wife, or baby mama, went to jail because Bane's dad had died, and Bane had to live out his sentence as a baby. Then 5 years later, his mother died. And then he was taken out of protective custody because he was in that, and sent to the actual prison. And then when a prisoner tried to extort him as a baby, because as a kid, because he was small, he could be useful, someone tried to defend Bane, but then Bane got knocked over the railing and was pretty much went into like a 31-day coma. Man, this kid cannot catch a break. But he was about to get a break he needed, because Bane, like, well, not really a break, but still, he came to an enlightened state where he realized, where he met his future self, and the future self's like, hey, you can be a big badass as me, but you gotta conquer your fears. So Bane went up to the guy that tried to use him after he woke up and killed him. Yep, you're in that part of Batman now. And he was pretty much sent to solitary confinement for like 10 years, and pretty much that quote from The Dark Knight Rises again could be best described as what Bane really went through. Then he got out and pretty much was a legend in the prison and ruled over it with an iron fist. But then he met a guy named Bird. Now, you might not know who Bird is, but Bird was that guy, one guy from that one Arkham Origins side mission. I mean, he didn't really look like this, but still, that was him. It's weird that it didn't really include his other two henchmen, Zombie and Trog. I mean, Zombie would make sense, I guess, because he's more of the chemist, and Trog was an electronics thing. But I mean, Trog was still a brick shithouse, so it doesn't really make sense not to include him. And oh yeah, by the way, his entire backstory was narrated by Zombie. But after meeting Bird, he starts to learn more about the world, actually learn to read, and begins reading like it's a drug. And more or less, he starts to train his body to where he's pretty much normal, how everyone thinks Bane looks, but really like with Venom, but he actually did train to get that body, so that's one ding to how accurate Dark Knight Rises Bane is. But then over time, when he starts to learn about Bird's past in Gotham City, he learns about Batman, and it just so happens his fear in his own mind is a bat. So he's like, okay, I gotta get so like I have to become the number one badass in the world, so I gotta rule over Gotham City by taking down Batman. And so he begins to beat the crap out of people until he gets sent to solitary again. But the warden was also conducting experiments with a drug called Venom. And in the comics, Venom was already a thing. So it's kind of like, oh wow, that's that from that one comic that wasn't part of the main series. We'll talk more about it later. So pretty much, they decide to volunteer Bane because every other test subject sucked, and Bane got hooked on the stuff, and was also the only one to survive and got hooked on it. And his cohort Zombie was like, okay, this drug, pretty much snuck the drug and studied it and was like, okay, yeah, I can totally replicate this. And so him and Bane came up with a plan where Bane would just simply fake his death by lowering his heart rate and then get tossed into the main way this prison deals with dead people, throwing it into shark infested waters and waiting for the sharks to eat them. But then Bane broke out, killed a shark, and then got out of the prison, went right back in to get his people, and then escape, and then throw the warden into the shark infested waters. So they went to Gotham, got some new identities, and they began to work on the Venom apparatus that he usually uses. And then they, for some reason, decided to throw in a luchador mask in there. You know, just to really highlight how awesome Bane is. And so Bane decides, okay, you know what? I gotta know more about this Batman. So he goes over to Bird's old mate who betrayed him earlier, that he mentioned betrayed him, and was like, hey, dude, tell me about Batman. He's like, oh, he only shows up when there's trouble. Bane's like, okay, so we just gotta make trouble. So he just kills all of them because Bird really wanted revenge. And this makes a crime scene because all these mobsters are dead in very brutal ways, and the police are like, okay, so this is kind of a lot. It doesn't really make sense who did this. It must be like a mob hit or something. So I guess it's like a very like super bulky gang or in across town. So Batman goes over because he showed up at the crime scene. Bane's like, tells his people, okay, he's mine. I want to go study him. And so while Batman is running towards the other place where the police said that most likely this is where it goes. Batman shows up, starts kicking the crap out of him after turning off the lights. But he doesn't kill any of them, and in fact tries to save one of them when they eventually go over the ledge. And Bane's like, huh, why is he saving them? That does make sense. So he goes over to the main boss man, who's also just like the twig to all these muscle heads, which is pretty funny. And it's more like, he's my kill. Back off. And then he kills the guy, and Batman's like, okay, who the hell are you? You're not with these people. And Bane's like, you do not kill. That is interesting to me. I want to know why. And Batman, so that I may crush you. And Batman's like, oh, get in line, buddy. There's like plenty of people who want to kill me. Bane's like, you will scream my name when I'm through with you. And then Bane escapes. And the cops are like, okay, so they're all defeated. And Rene Montoya, who's apparently here, by the way, walks up to one of them and they said, Batman did this, because they see one dead body. And at this point, I think she doesn't trust Batman, so she's like, okay, clearly Batman did this. He went psycho. And Bullock, in one of the few moments where he actually defends Batman, is like, yeah, this ain't him. This ain't him. Oh yeah, Bullock was there, by the way. So Batman leaves, and then Bane just goes off, and his Connor's like, dude, you didn't kill him. What the heck? And he's like, no, I must know more about Gotham, and I wish to know more about Batman. He fascinates me. After I know him, I will kill him. It's probably the biggest Bane story ever. And this is pretty much prologue 1 to Nightfall, which already had a prologue where Batman apparently goes through like a midlife crisis where he's like, crap, am I wasting my life? Am I honestly making the most of my life? And am I doing things? I haven't read that part yet, but I did read the main Nightfall story. And this will all eventually lead into Bane's big plan to break out everyone in Arkham or Blackgate. I don't really remember. And more or less just have Batman go on all these people and eventually get too tired, and then he can kick the shit out of him. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that Bane's plan was to just wait till Batman was exhausted so that he can kick his ass, which is a pretty good idea of like how Bane uses his brain, but also it kind of diminishes the whole idea that of his one big accomplishment of breaking the bat wasn't from pure physical strength. It was more from just waiting till Batman was tired. I mean, sure, it's a feat to break someone's back with their knee, but still, it isn't as impressive when you realize that Batman was literally dead tired.
It is said that which does not kill you makes you stronger. But that which makes you stronger can often kill you. Addiction is a weakness, one that must be overcome. Venom has become my addiction, my weakness. To free myself, I have tried many things. For a time, I sought to eradicate Venom and wipe those who manufacture it from the face of the earth. But lately I've gravitated towards Project TN1, a replacement drug, which would eliminate Venom's addictive properties and holds the promise of a permanent effect. If it works, I would no longer have need of the delivery system. Another weakness. While early tests had to be terminated immediately, the latest subjects seem at least physically stable. But side effects are severe. Immediate and permanent long-term memory loss, followed by a general degradation of brain function that leaves the subject primitive. Testing continues. The latest formula shows promise. Once I've eliminated the bat, I will dedicate myself to finding a suitable volunteer for my tests. And End of recording. Answer my question. Why are you here?
Same as you, of course. Money, glory.
Don't play games with me.
But you can play the cunning brute? I know of your reliance on venom, and your desire to eliminate it.
How do you...
When you've lived as long as the Master has, you can gather a great deal of knowledge.
You're working for him. What is he planning?
You know better than to question his motives.